this morning, Frank?
Done real good. I had the headache. I had the headache last Sunday and Wednesday night. I didn't get off for 6. So I had to hit it in the yard then. I didn't have a choice.
Good to see you this morning.
Well, he let me off yesterday. What's his name?
Morning, brother. Morning. Good to see you. We've been on a road trip.
Yep, y'all have.
Friday morning, we left at 4, went to Harrison, came back yesterday, and got home around 7:30. So it's down there and turn around, that's 3 games and come back.
3 games. Harrison's up the hill too.
It's close to Fayetteville.
Yeah, it's kind of a rough field.
Ransom's not too far.
Yeah. Well, Sharon's been to Bunch and took her. I ain't gonna try that night.
I ain't never want to go there.
We ran into some people on the way here this morning that got off. They missed their turn. They were headed for Branson, so we stopped to try to help them out. But they had it figured out on their GPS by the time we got their attention.
GPS is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, if you listen to it, if it's
Yeah.
updated. They missed their turn this morning. But well, let's see. We finished 1 Samuel chapter 26 last time, so we're about, and we started in 27, didn't we?
I don't know, I've got it marked. Gotta get some eyes so I can see.
Get your glasses.
Yeah.
Well, let's see here. Before we get started this morning, Frank, would you like to lead us in prayer? Go ahead.
Our most gracious, kind of living Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this Lord's Day, for this gathering here this morning. Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for the night's rest that Thou blessed us with. We thank Thee for You allowing us to be here today. Heavenly Father, as we look at the desire of study, we ask that Thou be with us. Be with Brother Layne as he guides us through the lesson, Heavenly Father. Heavenly Father, be with us always. In Thy Son, Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Let's see. We went through.
I don't think we got started in 27. I think we was about to start 27.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. You remember what we looked at in 26? Saul comes to the hill Hakilah against David. David stays Abishai from killing Saul, but takes his spear and his cruse, his water bottle.
Water bottle.
So, you guys remember, we were wondering what in the world happened between Saul and David again, right?
Yeah.
And if anybody had any reason, based on what we've read so far, if anybody had any reason to get mad, it would probably be David.
Mm-hmm.
Get, at Saul. You remember why?
Because the guy gave his wife away.
While he was gone, Saul gave his daughter, who was already married, to someone else. So, of anybody who should be getting angry or upset, it'd probably be David. But he was a little preoccupied in the marriage department. Why?
Because he married 2 other women.
2 more women. And so one of them was Abigail, and that we read about in chapter 25. And wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Abigail.
Yeah. And so that brought us to, and then so Saul was angry, and he brought those 3,000 men, you remember? And he brought, you remember, his general of his army was with them and everything. And they were sleeping, weren't they?
Yeah.
And what happened when they were asleep?
That's when David went in and put the spear in the bottle of water.
David and his forces were able to get in there. And where was Saul and his military general?
He was in the middle of them.
Why?
Supposedly protection.
Mm-hmm. And so David, what does he do in the middle of the night once they've gone in and then came back out? He's standing on top of a hill outside of their Saul's camp, right? And then what's he do?
He shows them, look what I got.
He's like, wake up. Time to wake up. Look what I got. And what does he have?
He has the spear and the water bottle.
Which he got from
Saul.
And what could he have done? I mean, David's forces were in his tent and in Saul's tent. He could have
killed Saul.
He could have. Now, what did his people want to do?
They wanted to kill Saul.
They wanted to do it. How bad did they want to do it?
They want to do it real bad.
They wanted to take that spear and
Skin
remember.
him to the ground.
Yeah. Now, you can impale somebody, and the spear won't necessarily go through them. I mean, you can stab somebody, but if you impale somebody, you're making a shish kebab out of a person. I mean, I hate to phrase it that way, but it's true.
That's exactly what it is.
It's exactly what it is. And that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to plant that spear through a person and into the ground. Just like Saul wanted to do what,
David before.
he wanted to do it through a wall. Okay, but David said what to his people?
Not to the Lord's anointed.
Right, which reminds us of when?
When he took the skirt, when he took his.
Right, because David could have killed him there, and who wanted to kill him?
Hit the people again.
Mm-hmm. And David said back then, not to my king. So.
I have a note here where it says that when Saul was sleeping,
Mm-hmm.
that he kept his spear by his head. So, that shows you how easy it would have been to
Right
go
there.
through the deed.
Just right there. And doesn't it make sense to keep your weapon ready and available where you're going to be able to see it at a moment's notice if you get attacked in the middle of the night? So it would make sense if he kept it, right next to where he could see it at night. And so now there is, one thing that they had going for them. David's forces had going for them to help them out. I mean, they weren't completely stealthy, but what helped them keep
Well,
from
the
getting
Bible
caught?
says that the Lord put a deep sleep on him.
Mm-hmm. Right, and so now that would have been really bad if the Lord was helping them out to keep them asleep, and then David would have allowed. It would not have looked good for David if he would have allowed his people to start going on a massive killing spree on people that God was trying to help keep, asleep. God didn't tell him go in there and wipe everybody out while I keep them asleep. Right? And so that would have been really bad for David if he had done that. So, but anyway, that leads us to chapter 27, and I left one of these sheets of paper at home, but that's all right.
Without God's help, David and his soldiers couldn't have went in there.
Right.
There wouldn't have been no way going in there on
Right.
12, 13, 14, 15 men
Mm-hmm.
sneaking through. Somebody would have woke up.
Oh yeah, and I give credit to David for not, I give him even more credit knowing that God helped them to do something they would not have been able to do, because if they had God's help to do that and then they took it too far, I can't imagine what the repercussions would have been.
David was chosen because he was a strong, godly man.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he was chosen to make this journey, to be the king. He was a strong, godly man.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he was chosen. That's why Saul was chosen.
Mm-hmm.
But his power overcome him.
Mm-hmm.
His power overcome him. And of course, it's going on down. It's going to overcome David.
Now, what's the difference? What's the big difference between David and Saul? One of them a sinner, and one of them's a perfectly sinless person?
He's a godly man.
Well, yeah, he's a godly man, but David, right? But have we seen him sin yet?
Yes, he's lied.
Yeah, he's lied several times. He's withheld information from people. He's given people false information. He's done some things. But what's the big difference between when David messes up and when Saul messes up? How do they handle it? What's the difference? Is it how they handle the situation? Now, how did Saul lose everything when he handled the situation, and David, how does he keep gaining things when he messes up and sins?
Well, Saul blamed his own people.
Uh-huh.
He didn't take responsibility.
Right.
David takes responsibility for what he does.
Right. Now when
Sorrowful when people died that he lied to.
yeah.
Right? Not that he directly lied to, but the people close to them died.
Right, and that got him killed, and he, So he's truly penitent and wants to make it right, wants to make everything right and stay right inside of God. Whereas Saul is just kind of like, nah, I'm the head honcho now. He's lost himself to power, greed. So that leads us to chapter 27 here, and we'll read. There's just 4 of us here right now, so I guess we'll each read about three verses each. And then, because there's only 12 verses in this chapter, so we'll go through it quick. And David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistines, and Saul shall despair of me, to seek me any more in any coast of Israel. So shall I escape out of his hand. And David arose, and he passed over with the 600 men that were with him unto Achish, the son of Maoch, the king of Gath. And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelites, and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife.
And it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and that he sought no more again for him. And David said unto Achish, If I have now found grace in thine eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the royal city with thee? Then Achish gave him Ziklag that day, wherefore Ziklag pertaineth unto the kings of Judah unto this day. And the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and invaded the Gershurites and the Gezerites and the Amalekites, and those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as those goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt.
And David smote the land, and left neither man nor woman alive. Took away the sheep and the oxen, and the donkeys and the camels and the field, and returned and came to Achish. And Achish said, Whither have you made a road today? And David said, Against the south of Judea, against the south of the Hermelites, and against the south of the Kenites. And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines.
Go ahead and read the last one there.
And Achish believed David, saying, He hath made his people Israel utterly to abhor him. Therefore he shall be my servant forever.
You guys remember back in chapter 21? Look at verses 10 through 15 of chapter 21. It says, And David arose and fled that day for fear of Saul, and went to who?
10 through 21. Went to Gath. Achish, the king of Gath.
And so now flip back to chapter 27. Now where's he? Who's chasing him? Who is David running from in chapter 21, and who is he running from in chapter 27?
Well, he's running from Saul in 21. And
again here in 27, right? And so, who is he running? So it's the same person he's running. He's being chased by the same person that he was before. Now where's he going? Same place. Now who's he going to?
Achish, the king of Gath.
Same person, same place, same reasons. Now, you guys remember how he got out of Gath the first time?
Yeah, mad.
He feigned mental illness. He acted crazy, even foaming at the mouth. Now David and his men were welcomed by Achish. We see here in 27, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some have speculated that he welcomed them because of the 600 men that were with him. Because the last time he visited Gath by himself, and he had to leave because he looked around and saw that the people weren't really taking too kindly to him walking among them with Goliath's sword. Yeah. because that was their local hero that he killed with that sword. Some people believe that this time around Achish is saying, "Oh, welcome, David, welcome," because he's got 600 men with him, a force. Others believe, that's believable. If you have somebody come, here, and he's just one guy, and he ends up running away scared, and then he comes, you're just kind of like, yeah, you better keep running. But then what happens if he comes knocking on your door? Yeah, you might, and that, he's never lost a battle before. So, anyway, it's believable that it could be that Achish let him, come because he might have been scared. Others speculate that he had time to see that Saul was really trying to kill him, because you remember David, when he went in chapter 21, he went there to try to seek what?
Refuge.
Yeah. Did he get a chance to have that conversation with the king? No, he turned tail and ran before before things went south. So this time around, it could be possible that Achish was afraid of David trying to come by force, or it could be that he was like, "Oh, well, I understand that you're actually in trouble. So, and the guy that is chasing you is my enemy, so I'll help you. The enemy of my enemy is my friend," type thing. Could be that. Look at verse 3 of chapter 20. Somebody read verse 3.
Chapter 27.
Yeah.
All those nice words.
Yeah.
And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife. So,
you guys remember before David's 600 men with him, we really haven't seen them. We saw earlier that they haven't had a whole lot of women and children with them, if at all. Why?
They're in battle.
Yeah, it was harder to pick up.
Watch your family and fight too.
Huh?
Watch your family and fight too.
Yeah, it's hard to do that. Right, and it was a lot harder to carry a whole lot of things. Like, back then, women didn't really fight in the battles. They were more of a domestic, atmosphere. And so, what do you think? What are some things that you think of when you think of the word domestic?
Housekeeping utensils.
Right.
I mean, like I said, a regular kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
Just housekeeping stuff.
Cooking and cleaning and doing all these other things. That's what a lot of them would be doing. And so, yes, any army would have to eat, and yes, any army would have to have their, their things washed. So whether or not they were doing it themselves or whether they had some, women with them, we don't know. But up until this point, we knew that they didn't have many, if any, at all. But now, what do we see here in verse 3?
David's got 2 wives with him.
And so, and one of them, where are they from? Like, what is their heritage?
Jezreelites and Carmelis.
Right. And so, Saul, it says, Saul no longer pursued David because he had left the land. He had left the land. What land?
Gath, Philistine.
Well, why would Saul stop pursuing David? Because Saul is over what land?
Israel.
Right. And so if he stopped pursuing David because he had left the land, and we know that he went to Gath, we know that Saul stopped pursuing him right now because he's left his territory so far. Mm-hmm. And he's willing to run around in his own yard, in his own fenced-in area, with all the force that he has, right? But when he goes into somebody else's yard, when he goes over here into Gath, if he goes just to try to take David, what is that going to start?
It's not going to start a war.
Right. You see how it's smart of David to, run over there, even though it's a foreign nation, it's an enemy nation. It's pretty smart if it works. Go ahead.
There in verse 1, it talks about him at the end where that he seeks him any more than any coast of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And then he crosses it, so he escapes out of his hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's talking about.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so he purposed to do it, and then verse 2 says, and David arose and passed over with the 600. So he said in his mind, hey, I need to get out of here. And then in verse 2, he does. He gets up and goes. And then verse 3, we see that he's there. And so, let's see. Saul, David's thinking regarding Saul pursuing him proved to be true, like Frank just pointed out. Saul probably figured that David was no longer a threat to him. Some have theorized that he was afraid to go into the Philistines' country to pursue David. But again, without having, a definitive thing, it's just a theory. But it makes sense. It makes a whole lot of sense. It's like a modern day example. You guys remember that Snowden? You guys remember hearing about that guy Snowden on the news? It was last year and the year before. He was a hacker here in America. He was an American citizen, and he was a computer hacker, and he broke into these government files, and he revealed them out on the internet. He got these secret government files, and he put them out all over the internet, which exposed a lot of illegal activity that was going on in our government. A lot of people in the Pentagon, different areas of the government, he revealed it. There are two groups, there are two labels, or two groups of people that were involved with this whole thing when looking at Snowden. Some people claim that looked at him like a hero and saying, hey, he did a great service. These people are doing something illegal. And, this is against the laws, not just of our land, but international laws. And he revealed that. So yeah, in some ways he did something great for good, just for the sake of doing good. He wasn't trying to hurt the people involved, but he was trying to bring them to justice. But on the other hand, the other label that he was given was he's a terrorist. He's a traitor to our country. He just revealed all of our nations, all of these secrets of our nation to the world. And, he just made it easier for people to attack us. And so, which way do you look at it? You know what I mean? And so, the point I'm bringing this up for is he fled America because the government was going to, he was afraid for his life. He just revealed all these big government officials and FBI, CIA agents, all these secrets. What do you think he's going to do? He's got people that aren't even in the government threatening to kill him. He's got former military members of our nation threatening to kill him because he's a traitor. The guy leaves. This is a real thing. That I'm bringing this up because it's like David. Snowden left, and he's living in Russia now. If our country, imagine if President Obama wanted Snowden so bad. Imagine. Do you think that he would just, and he found out that he's in Russia. Do you think sending in a coalition of 3,000 chosen men to go get Snowden, you think invading Russia would be a smart move?
No.
Do you guys think it would be smart?
No.
I don't think it would be smart. So, I think Saul might be in a situation just like that. You know what I mean? That's the way I'm thinking of it right now, just to try to use a modern day example. Because David, he's kind of in the same situation Snowden is. He's got people looking at him like he's got some people labeling him a hero over here, and some people labeling him a traitor, and all these other things. And so he's in the same situation now. So that was chapter 27 verses 1 through 4. Now, let's look at 5 through 7 here. David requested a city where he, his men, and their families could live. Such a city would allow David and his men some freedom to move around, right? As well as allow them to worship God, not a god or a series of gods. Why would they have to worry about that? Why would David want to live? He's left his Israel. He's left his home country for fear of Saul. He's gone to a Philistine country, and he's asked the leader, "Hey, can I have a plot of land for my people to live in?" Why would they be worried about having their own place set aside to where they could worship God?
Because the land they're in does not
Right.
view God as the God.
Right. They don't view Jehovah as the one God. Despite 1 Samuel chapter 4 and 5, you guys remember what happened back then with the ark? Despite having all these bad things happen to them, and all the proofs in the world that they could ask for, that their gods are, just stone and wood and metal. That's all they are. And having all the proofs in the world that the God of Israel is the one with true power, they still are idolatrous. And so that's why it would be important another reason why it would be important for David and his men to have their own plot of land. Because how long do you think David's men and the Philistines would get along if they were all lumped into one place? It probably wouldn't take long before they started. Because what are 2 or 3 of the biggest things that people fight about, even universally, no matter what country, no matter what time?
Religion and politics.
Religion and politics. And so, Jews, Gentiles, okay, they can sit together, they can work together. I mean, we're seeing David and Achish work together, but so there's the politics. They're kind of working together. But can you imagine trying to mix the religions? It probably wouldn't work too for very long, if at all.
Showed respect from David to ask him for the ground. Showed great respect.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't want to. What's that phrase? Bite the hand that's feeding him, right? Yeah. So, let's see. Having this land would allow them freedom to move around, and they wouldn't have to be worried about, stepping on anybody's toes. They'd be allowed to worship Jehovah God in the way that they're supposed to, and avoid the idolatry of the Philistines. Now, Bob Knox says, he says in his commentary here, if he had been David, he would have also felt very uncomfortable in that capital city of the Philistines, living with his former enemy, former and continuous enemy. At best, this was simply a temporary treaty between David and the Philistines. And David, what does it say in verse 7 there? Was David allowed to have this land?
Yeah, and he was there for 1 year and 4 months.
Pretty long time. I mean, when you think about it. But what's the name of the land?
Ziklag?
Ziklag. And so that'll come back later. We'll hear that again later too. But so now we have a reference. Now where is Ziklag? Is it in Israel or Philistine?
Philistine.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's look at 8 through 12, and we'll wrap this up, and we'll be moving on to chapter 28. All right. Read 8 through 12 again. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Anybody.
And David and his men went up and invaded the Gershurites and the Jezreelites and the Amalekites, and for those nations were of old the inhabitants of the land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. And David smote the land and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep and the oxen and the donkeys, and the camels and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. And Achish said, Whither have ye made a road today? And David said, Against the south of Judah, and against the south of the Jeshramites, and against the south of the Kenites. And David said, Neither man nor woman alive to bring things to Gath, saying, Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelleth in the country of the Philistines. And Achish believed David, saying, He hath made his people Israel utterly to abhor him. Therefore he shall be my servant forever.
So look in verse 12. We'll come back to this here in a second, but it says, and Achish believed David. So keep that in mind. David's a good guy, right? But he's lied to people before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll let you guys tell me what you guys see here in a minute. But let's see, 8 through 12. Even though David was in the Philistine territory, he continued to fight the enemies of Israel, right? Mm-hmm. Notice that the text says he went out against the Geshurites, the Gezrites, and the Amalekites. These were the enemies of Israel and the friends of the Philistines. So he's living in Philistia. He's living among the Philistines, but with the permission of the kings, by the king's permission. He's been given this territory of land in this nation, but he's going out and he's killing members of this nation. Interesting. When David reported back to Achish, he could not tell him that he had been raiding Achish's friends. So he made it appear that he had been attacking Israelites. What do you guys think about that? I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Because what's he doing?
He's lying.
He's lying. And the last time he lied, it got people killed. Mm-hmm. This time he's lying about the people he's killing. I don't like that at all. But let's continue on. He did this by using generalizations which misrepresented his true actions by saying he had raided against the south of Judah, the south of the Jerahmeelites, and the south of the Kenites. Interesting, huh? Without more details, this would appear to Achish that he was attacking Israelites. This misrepresentation by David in the text is a what? Starts with an L and ends with an IE. It's a straight up lie. David had failed to trust God by moving in with the Philistines. Now he was lying in order to stay on friendly terms with his host. You guys are all parents in here, and I have no doubt Trey's going to do it one day. I hope he doesn't, but I have no doubt that he will. Everybody at some point does it. Have you ever known that your kids were doing something or were involved in something, and then you ask them about it, and then they phrase things in such a way that it sounds like they're trying to they're trying to make it appear as though they weren't directly involved or responsible for doing something bad, but yet, they're not trying to lie, but they're not trying to implicate themselves. Okay. Have you guys ever?
Homework tends to come to mind.
Yeah, homework. Hey, did you get your homework done?
I don't have any homework.
I don't have any homework.
Yard work,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Chores in general. Did you get that done? Well, yeah. Did you take the trash out? Yes. I took the trash out of my room. Yes. No. That's not what I asked. I said, did you take the trash out? You know what I mean. Well.
or Woolette Yard, more yard, Woolette Yard. Burnley,
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mowed part of the yard. I mowed the front part. I picked up some of the weeds.
that would be a side of me if I was your daddy, you wouldn't like.
Oh yeah. Now can you imagine if Achish had found out? I mean, who is he killing? Who is David killing?
Philistines, basically.
And who is Achish?
He's a Philistine king.
I mean, What if he had found out? I mean, he's sitting there thinking, man, we got David living with us. He's out there killing Israelites. Man, he's doing all my work for me. This is great. But can you imagine? How long? What would that smile be if he'd turn it upside down real quick? I mean, he probably wouldn't even do that. He'd probably get mad and try to kill him. I mean, that's just crazy. That's just crazy to me that he's doing this. And again, we come back to when David does things. When he prays to God and asks God what he's supposed to do before he does something, does it always work out for him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How well does it work out for him?
Extremely well.
Extremely well. What about when David just says, oh, well, I'm just going to do what I want?
It doesn't work out so well.
Yeah. And it always leads to somebody getting killed or David lying or transgressing the law in some way. And so, I mean, we can learn from that today. I mean, obviously God's not going to directly talk to us directly like he did, back then, but we do have his word, and that's why we're supposed to study it. And we still do need to pray to God, for situations and, before we get into it or while we're going through it or something. Because a lot of the times, like this past week at school, I have already taken the steps I needed to make it right with everybody, but in the middle of the week, on Thursday, I completely blew up in the middle of everybody. I mean, I started yelling at people because, and I can tell you guys about that later, but I acted very childish. And if I had thought about it, if I had calmed myself down and prayed about it, I would have. I'm not going to say probably. I would have handled that a lot better. Since then, I've already gone to the second year class, which I'm with, and I've already gone to the first year class, and I've already apologized publicly to them, and, asked them to, forgive me for yelling at them and stuff. But this week, I felt like David here, having a knee-jerk reaction to something. In hindsight, like in the moment, it's, hey, let's just do it. But in hindsight, it's me looking back on that instance. I'm like, man, that was so stupid. That was so stupid. And I feel terrible about it. And so I feel like David, I need to do a better job of trusting God, going to Him before, But we can all say that we've done that, We jump before we look, we leap before we look. And so, but that situation this week has gotten a lot better too, so don't worry. Don't worry. It's all taken care of. But anyway, we saw David here lying, and so why is he lying anyway?
Staying good with the parent.
Yeah, and because, I mean, he's got a house. He's got a place for all his people. He's got he's got to be comfortable. I mean, how long would you live somewhere? I mean, would you live there in a place where you were uncomfortable or just was uninhabitable for a year and 4 months? And he's going out, and he's able. I mean, this is his base of operations. He's able to go out and raid this place and then come back, and then raid this place and then come back, and raid this place and come back. I mean, I think about preachers who we hear about this more often than we ever should. You hear about a preacher or somebody who, in any job really, somebody who's working at a place that is not doing something. Let's just say a congregation starts getting off, and the elders start saying to the preacher, "Hey, we don't want you preaching about marriage, divorce, and remarriage anymore. We don't want you preaching about it. Just avoid that subject." Well, a good preacher is going to say, "What? Bye. See you later." If that's how it's going to be, I'm not going to be part of this.
We've witnessed that personally.
Yeah.
A guy that decided that he didn't need to stay there any longer when the elders told him he didn't need to preach on marriage, divorce, remarriage.
Really? Was that?
There's a guy that's still preaching that when they first moved back into this area.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm proud of him for saying, hey, I'm not.
But he was getting attacked. In
Mhm.
fact, we left where we were going to go to worship there for them, just supporting them.
Mm-hmm.
And man, he was that, and the fact that when they were deciding what they wanted to study on Wednesday night, the suggestion made that maybe why not do a study of denominational doctrines so you know how to refute those. And we had a lot of ignorant people in that area. And the elders basically said, now why would we want to learn about false teachings? And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Not just a few weeks later.
Yeah.
And, I remember them saying, we don't need to preach on divorce and marriage because they had a lot of influential people in that congregation, and so I guess they're afraid it's going to make them leave. So he left.
I mean,
He's over in Middle Tennessee now.
well, I'm glad that he did not do what David is doing here, because how often, I mean, and that marriage, divorce, and remarriage is not the only subject. I mean, any subject. I was just throwing one out there, but how often have you guys ever heard? I mean, we know it's happening, but congregation starts getting off on the truth somewhere, and a preacher says, "Well, I got my house here, my kids are in school. They've given me raises over the years where I'm not going to be able to get this kind of money somewhere else. I think I'll just, I'll keep going. There's a lot of other things in the Bible I can preach about, instead of marriage, divorce, and remarriage, and I'll throw that in there somewhere, I'm sure. I'll come back to it, don't worry." But then they stay there, and they compromise. You know what I mean? And I don't want to ever be known as one who compromises the truth for something earthly. I don't ever want that. But that's what we see David's doing here, right? I mean, he's willing to sin in order to keep his physical things, right?
We're studying David, but there's 600 soldiers traveling with David.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them likely could have had their family with them, some of the higher ranking officers.
Oh yeah.
Now, how you support 600 people feed them if you don't go take something?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well, they have the land to grow stuff too, but yeah.
But in a year's time, I'm a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes you 5 to 6 months to get greens up.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about greens, you gotta have those things to meat.
Mm-hmm.
So, David was probably justified from taking this stuff from these people.
Well, he wasn't just taking their stuff; he was going out and killing
He was
people.
killing the people.
He was wiping them out
If you come
entirely.
to my home, don't take my stuff,
Yeah.
what little stuff I've got.
Mm-hmm.
I'm positive that I tell you you can't have it, and I rebuke you and you'd kill me. But I'm just saying, that's the same way like David going in, he's taking stuff to support his soldiers.
Well, and the thing we got to remember, and I'm sure that is probably true.
That's true, it's got to be true.
But the thing that we do need to remember is that he does have the full support of Achish. You guys remember that phrase, Sukasa, Mikasa, Sukasa, Mikasa? What does that mean?
Your house is my house is your house.
And so that's what we see is going on between David and Achish, right? They're working together, and so he's got, not only did he give him this territory, this whole city of Ziklag, he's undoubtedly got the support that he needs to keep it going. We've got to remember that what David is doing right here is wrong for the reasons that he's murdering people, wiping them out completely, and then lying about it. If he was just sacking them, if he was just attacking people who were were doing something wrong against him, or if he was going to try to get some food from them and then they got into a skirmish, like they attacked David's people and then they just defended themselves, that would be totally acceptable if David said, hey, you remember when he went to Nabal and said, hey, we need those resources that you owe us. And you remember that? And what did Nabal do? He's like, I don't know you. I ain't never heard of you before. And then what did David say? I mean, he had to repent later because he got so angry that he, instead of praying to God to see what he was supposed to do, he had that knee-jerk reaction and sent all of his people to go attack. But who's the one who diffused that situation? Abigail. It could be that David was going out to places, and saying, hey, can we get some resources or something? And then maybe but we're not told. We're not told that. But right now, like what we're learning about in chapter 27 is the big emphasis is David is sinning. David is not trusting in God. He's trying to do things on his own, and he's messing up. And I feel really bad for him because he's in a position of leadership. All these people are following him and all these things. He's in an enemy nation, and he feels like he has to lie in order to continue having a place for all of his men and all these other things. And it's, in a way, it's really just sad to look at him right now because he's messing up so bad, and it's causing all of this stuff that's going to come back. But the thing is has Achish been good to? Has the king of the Philistines been good to David? I mean, he's been very good to him.
He considered him like an ally.
Exactly. And how is David repaying Achish's kindness?
He's killing his people.
And then doing what about it? Then lying about it. That's not right. I mean, that is not right. And he said, let's see, Achish was led to believe that David had become a great enemy of Israel, right? Mm-hmm. And was abhorred by them. He thus believed that he could trust David, right? He believed that he could trust David and that David would be his faithful servant, or like Frank said, his ally. Regarding the slaughter of the people David attacked, it should be remembered that Israel had been commanded before this to utterly destroy the people of Canaan. You guys remember, why did Saul get in trouble?
Because he didn't utterly destroy. He kept the king and all of livestock.
Right. And so it is true that David is, like what Zeke was talking about, he is destroying. He's doing what God had previously stated that needed to be done. If Saul had done his job before, this problem would not still be these,
Saul would still be the king.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, he'd still be right in God's eyes. So David, on one hand, even though he is killing these people who have had their chance to repent, have had their chances to do all these things, God has told his people to wipe them out. David's doing that. So on that part, he is following God. Where have we talked about the entire? So the killing the people is not the problem, because God said that. But what have we said all morning is the problem?
He's lying about it.
He's lying about it. He's lying to save his own skin, right? All right. Utterly destroyed. That was in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 1 through 2. That's where he was. That's what they were commanded to kill all the people in this land before. A list of those who came to David at Ziklag is provided in 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verses 1 to 22. So, again, David, on one hand, he's doing what he's supposed to do in God's eyes over here, but then he turns around and he messes it up because he lies. He's doing the right things for the right reasons, but then he, in God's eyes, but then in man's eyes, he changes his story. And that's not I mean, is David going over here and talking to God, and then God just stays there? And then he goes over here and whispers to Achish, oh yeah, but I'm not really killing your people. I'm killing the people you hate. But he's triggering it. No, God's there too. God sees it all, right? And so, David, this is not good. So, let's read 1 Samuel 28. We'll each read about 3 verses again. And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare, to fight with Israel. And Achish said unto David, Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men. And David said to Achish, Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore will I make thee keeper of mine head forever. Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had lamented him, and buried him in Ramah, even his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits, and the wizards out of the land.
And the Philistines gathered themselves together and came and pitched in Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets.
Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servants said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit in Endor. And Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment, and he went, and 2 men with him, and they came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up, whom I shall name unto thee. And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits, and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life, to cause me to die?
And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, Whom shall I bring up unto thee? And he said, Bring me up Samuel. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spake to Saul, saying, Why hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul.
All right. So that was the first 12. Now, let's break these down a little bit. In verses 1 through 2, go back to those. The Philistines again went to war with who?
Saul,
And his nation is.
Israel.
So again, we see these 2 bordering nations going to war against each other. This would appear to be a major campaign against the Israelites, for the Philistines called in how many of their allies? All of them. Have you guys ever read the Iliad or the Odyssey? Have you guys ever read those old Greek stories? You guys remember Odysseus? You guys probably ever heard that one. Or Achilles. You guys have heard of Achilles? That's where we get the name, the Achilles heel. You know, the Achilles tendon. Because what happens if you cut your Achilles tendon?
Can't walk.
Huh?
Can't walk.
Can't walk, and if you don't pretty much clamp your leg, then you're gonna die. I mean, if you don't cut blood flow off to that leg, I mean, Joe, you're in the medical profession. You cut your Achilles a heel bad enough, that's it. You're gonna die. Well, it gets its name from the old story of Achilles, which it's that Greek poem, the epic poem of the Iliad, and Achilles in that, it's an old, fantasy story. Achilles was this great warrior who, in the story, his mother dipped him in this magic water, she held him by the ankle and she dipped him in the magic water. So every piece of him from head to toe, except for on that one ankle and foot where his mom was holding him, every piece of his body in the story that hit that water was impenetrable. He could not be killed in battle. He was, arrows would fly at him and they would just bounce off. Swords would hit him and then they would just shatter. That's what the story. The reason I bring this up is because in the Iliad, the leader of the nation, you guys remember the Battle of Troy? That's what this is in the Iliad, where one nation had stolen the queen of the other nation, and they had kept her in Troy. And so all these other nations, he wanted to get his wife back. I can't remember his name right now, but the guy who had his wife stolen wanted to get her back because she was the most beautiful woman in the world, and it was his wife. So he called in all of his army to attack Troy, the city of Troy, and he called in every ally he had. They were at war with each other for years because you could not break down the walls of Troy. This is all in that story. Well, Achilles was outside the walls, and he was the greatest warrior that ever lived. Why? Because he was unbeatable, except for that foot. Achilles he was so well known that the people in Troy would actually refuse to come out to battle if they knew that he was out there, because they knew he was just going to wipe out all their people. They were like, what's the point? We're not going to send our people to die. Achilles was a warrior well known everywhere. Everybody wanted him on their side, right? And so that's what we're seeing. Like the king who was working with Achilles, he lost Achilles' trust when he threw a series of bad decisions. And so Achilles didn't even want to fight. And so Achilles' best friend went out and wore his Achilles' armor, and he ended up getting killed because people thought it was Achilles, and that drove Achilles crazy and all these things. He ended up dying because of an arrow hitting him through that tendon, and that's where we get the name. The reason why I bring that up at all is because the leader in that epic poem of the Iliad, the leader of the military, the one with the campaign against Troy, he called in every soldier that he had, and he called in every favor that he had with every ally to try to get every soldier of theirs to come in and attack. We're seeing Achish, he's bringing in all these people to go to war with who? Achish is going to war with Saul again, right? He thinks David is his ally, does he not? And we have, whereas Achilles is a fantasy character, he's a fictional person, but he was a warrior, well known, never lost a battle. Everybody was afraid of him. Everybody wanted him on their side. And who do we have who is a real life Achilles? David. You see where Achish, thinking that David is on his side, changes his battle plans a little bit? He's willing to go all in. You guys look at those poker, at the games where the guy's he's got triple aces in his hand. Or no, he's got two aces and a two. And twos are wild. And there's the other two aces and another two are on the board. That guy's not going to get beat. Clearly. I mean, there's just no way he's going to get beat. And so he does what? He pushes all of his chips in. Well, that's what Achish is doing here. He's calling in every favor, every ally, including David. And what does David do? Amanda was reading this to me on the way here while I was driving. What does David tell him here in verses 1 and 2? And Achish said unto David, Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, and thy men. And what does David say to Achish? David said to Achish what?
Thou knowest what thy servants can do. Therefore I make thee keep with mine head forever. So
Achish is saying, hey, you ready to go out to battle? And David answers by saying what?
Yeah. What
He
kind
doesn't
of
say,
round
he
ground?
doesn't, yeah, he doesn't say yeah. He says, well, you know what I can do. He did. What does that mean? Seriously, like, what does that mean? It's not even answering the question, it's dodging it. It's like what you said, he's just going completely around it. Well, is this new for David?
No,
Dodging the questions?
no.
No, because we just read about him dodging the questions and saying, oh, when he came back and reported to Achish, Achish said, hey man, what you been doing today? And I heard you were out there fighting. And David, he says, who are you fighting? And David's like, well, I fought the people south of Judah, and, making it think, because where's Judah? The Israelites, right? I fought some people south of the Jeremites, thinking more Jews. South of the Kenites, thinking more Jews. But he's dodging it. He's not saying, I fought the Philistines below these people. Anyway, Achish is ready to go out to battle, and he thinks David is on his side. He asks David before they go, are you ready? And David says, what?
I don't know what I can do.
He's like, you know what I can do. He doesn't say he's for him or against him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when he says that, though, what does Achish do? And Achish said to David, what?
I'll make thee keeper of mine head forever.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
What does that mean, Amanda? Special place in the military, right? Like, if we go out to battle and everything goes well, then I'll know you're my guy from here on out. And David, all the while, he's sitting there like, this guy, I don't even know what he's thinking. I don't know if he's sweating bullets, waiting for Achish to figure it out, or I don't know if he's kind of like chuckling because he's like, this guy's an idiot. I'm here to kill him and all his people, and he's just like, I'm giving him hints. I don't know. I don't know what David's thought process is. I don't know what his attitude towards all this is, but I do know he keeps dodging the truth. And so we saw that Achish is calling all these people in, all of his allies, and he's calling on David specifically and his men. But what would cause Achish to believe that David would fight against his own people? It was David's deception, his previous deceptions in the chapter 27. David had led him to believe that he had been fighting against the Israelites, when in reality he'd been destroying the enemies of Israel which existed in those territories. His loyalty to Israel was steadfast, as seen by his actions. David's lies would have come back to bite him if God's providence had not come into play, which we're going to see. Achish thought David was loyal to him. I'm going to underline that. So he called for David to join him in this battle. Verse 2 shows David's answer, which is ambiguous. But we already talked about that. So, now let's look at, let's see. Further evidence that David probably would not have fought against Israel is found in verses 9 and 10 of chapter 26. Let's read those. And David said to Abishai, destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? David said furthermore, as the Lord liveth, the Lord shall smite him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall descend into battle and perish. So, we saw what was chapter 26 when he said that, when his people were wanting to kill Saul, and David said, no, his time will come. The Lord's going to take care of that. So, again, here in chapter 28, he's probably not going, we can look at those things back there that we've already read to remind ourselves that he's probably not going to be fighting against his own people. You know what I mean? And so, if these events had played out as they appeared destined to do, one cannot help but wonder if David, in the midst of battle, would have turned on the Philistines. Achish answered David by promising to make him the keeper of mine head forever. What Achish was saying was that if David proved himself faithful in this war, he would make him the chief of his bodyguard. This would have been a very trusted position and a position of great honor, right? Now, how close and how the President of the United States has a bunch of, they have the Secret Service and other forces, other groups that protect him, right? But do all those guys just do stuff instinctively, or do they have somebody leading them?
Has somebody leaving?
Do you think that person who's ahead of all of the Secret Service for the president, you think the president trusts him, or you think he's keeping his eye on him all the time?
You trust him?
He probably trusts him a lot. If Achish is offering David the opportunity to be the head of basically his bodyguard, his select group, you think that's a pretty high honor? I'd say so. That's how much Achish trusts David. But we know, and it's so sad for Achish, because he's done all these good things. He's you can see that he's overall a good guy because he's done all these good things. Unfortunately, just being a good person doesn't get you into heaven, right? Unfortunately, just because he's a good guy and has done all these nice things for David, he's still a leader of an idolatrous nation, which shows no signs of what? Remorse or changing to follow Jehovah God. Now, if they had changed their ways, if David had been one who said, "Hey, thank you for giving me asylum from Saul. Would you like to hear about Jehovah God? You remember that ark you guys took from us and you had to give it back because it was causing all of your people to be killed and diseased and all these things? I want to talk to you about that God." Can you imagine? What if David would have done that? How simple would that have been? That would have been really simple, but we're not told that he ever tried. He may have, but he probably didn't. Because if he did, God probably would have put that in here for us to know. But the point being, Achish, despite doing all these good things, he's still not a child of God and doesn't really show any signs of wanting to be one. He's actually he's about ready to lead a raid against the children of God. And so I just feel so sad, because there's so many good people out in this world today, right? That we see that they're good people, but yet they have all the opportunities in the world to obey God, but yet they don't. I mean, do y'all ever see that at work? Yes, know people that they're good people. They may be a member of a denomination. Hey, they might even be an atheist. And they do so many good things for other people. But you know that it's not. If they don't become a Christian. I mean, how does that matter? It makes me feel sick. I hate that feeling. But we can see, things that happened then are still happening now. Right? This isn't just, when we get down to the nitty-gritty of it all, yeah, Achish was a king, but he was still just another person. And I know David is going to have to destroy him and all the other people of this land if they don't proselytize. And what does that word mean? Proselytize. Yeah. And so if they don't become proselytes into Judaism, then they're going to have to be destroyed. And that's unfortunate. But anyway, we got through verse 6, I believe. And so we'll come back next week. What is today's date? Is it the 10th?
So we're gonna start in verse 7 next week.
Yeah. All right. Start here. That's what I'll write. But, well, did anybody learn anything today? I did. I like reading about this stuff, even though it's heartbreaking when people mess up like that. But anyway.
You know, I'd hate to keep